She was a woman of mystery whose face shone on magazine covers and whose smile captivated millions. She embodied the dream of Hollywood, becoming its brightest star. But behind the image of a blonde with shining eyes was a soul filled with pain, loneliness, and desire for something more. How did a girl from an orphanage who dreamed of love become the symbol of an entire era? How did a star surrounded by millions of fans turn out to be the loneliest woman of her time? The story of Marilyn Monroe is a story of brilliance and darkness, triumph and tragedy, leaving behind the question, could the life of a legend have turned out differently? Marilyn Monroe, born as Norma Jean Mortensen on June 1, 1926, in Los Angeles, California, was born into an environment far removed from Hollywood glitz. Her mother, Gladys Pearl Baker, worked as an editor at a movie studio and suffered from unstable mental health. Norma Jean never knew her father, and his name was not on her birth certificate. Surrounded by uncertainty and hardship, she spent her childhood in conditions that would later greatly affect her life. Marilyn's early years were marked by constant change of scenery. Her mother was unable to cope with maternal duties due to severe mental problems, and Gladys was soon hospitalized. Norma Jean found herself in the care of various families and later in an orphanage. This period was marked by feelings of loneliness and insecurity that would haunt her throughout her life. Her first long stay was with the Belenda family, strict evangelists who lived in the suburbs of Los Angeles. It was there that Norma Jean began to show her natural brilliance, but the strict discipline of the home stifled her creative spirit. When Gladys returned briefly to pick up her daughter, the girl felt hope, but this joy was short-lived. Soon, her mother again lost custody. As a teenager, Norma Jean faced physical and emotional abuse, which left deep wounds on her psyche. These hardships, however, shaped her resilience and desire for a better life. The world around her was full of dreams of Hollywood, and despite adversity, Norma Jean began to fantasize about fame as a child. Local movie theaters, where she could escape from reality, became her inspiration. There she watched movies with bright stars who seemed unattainable, yet tantalizing examples that life could be different. This complex and chaotic period became the foundation for many of her character traits. It shaped her deep need for love and acceptance, as well as an incredible tenacity that would later help her pave her path to fame. At the age of 16, Norma Jean married her neighbor, James Dougherty, to avoid returning to the orphanage. This marriage was more of a convenience than a romantic connection. James was kind, but the marriage did not bring Norma Jean happiness. While Dougherty was in the Navy, Norma Jean began looking for work. She took a job in a munitions factory as part of the wartime effort, where a chance encounter changed her life. A photographer working on propaganda shots of women in manufacturing noticed Norma Jean and invited her to a photo shoot. The pictures, with her charming smile and striking appearance, attracted the attention of modeling agencies. Norma Jean began modeling, appearing on magazine covers. She recolored her brown hair to platinum blonde, creating the look that would become her signature. In 1946, she signed her first movie contract with 20th Century Fox. It was then that Norma Jean Mortensen became Marilyn Monroe. The name Marilyn was inspired by the famous Broadway actress Marilyn Miller, and the last name Monroe was her grandmother's maiden name. The name came to symbolize the new life and ambitious image she wanted to embody. Her first movie roles were small and insignificant, but Marilyn attracted the attention of producers with her unusual beauty and charisma. She took acting lessons and worked carefully on her image, striving for more than just being a pretty girl on the screen. By the early 1950s, Marilyn began to get more prominent roles in films such as The Asphalt Jungle and All About Eve. Although her screen time was minimal, critics noticed her and audiences were captivated. Her combination of innocence and sexuality became her unique trait, which led to a meteoric rise in popularity. Marilyn realized that Hollywood only saw her as a beautiful appearance. However, she wanted more, to become a recognized actress. It was during this period that her inner conflict began, between the image of a glamorous blonde and her desire for serious roles. This conflict will become an important part of her story. The year 1953 was a turning point for Marilyn. She received major roles in such films as Niagara and Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. In Niagara, she played a femme fatale, fully utilizing her sexuality. In Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, she showed her comedic skills, performing the legendary number, "Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend." These movies cemented her star status. Her image of a blonde with lush forms, naive smile, and sexual appeal instantly won the public. Marilyn became not only a star, but also a cultural phenomenon. Posters with her image were bought by millions. Her photos were printed on the covers of the most popular magazines. However, as her fame grew, so did her problems. Marilyn felt pressure from the studios and the public. They tried to lock her in one image, which was far from her real personality. Behind the image of a silly blonde was an intelligent and sensitive woman who craved recognition, not only for her beauty, but also for her talent. In 1954, her marriage to baseball legend Joe DiMaggio became a sensation. However, the relationship quickly soured due to Joe's jealousy and his inability to accept Marilyn's public life. This short but tumultuous marriage came to symbolize her difficulties in her personal life and her struggle to be herself. Her popularity continued to grow, but inside, Marilyn felt increasingly lonely. The Hollywood glamour she embodied hid her vulnerable soul, filled with doubts and fears. In 1956, Marilyn was again in the spotlight, but this time because of her marriage to the outstanding playwright Arthur Miller. This union was unexpected for many. At first glance, the glamorous actress and intellectual playwright seemed completely opposite personalities. However, Marilyn was looking for in Miller not only love, but also intellectual partnership, which she lacked in past relationships. During this period, she moved to New York City and began studying acting at the Lee Strasberg Acting Studio. She sought to prove to herself and the world that she was capable of deep and serious roles, not just screen stereotypes. This step was caused by her inner desire to get rid of the image of silly blonde and establish herself as a serious actress. Marilyn also created her own production company, Marilyn Monroe Productions, which was an important step towards independence in her career. This act was unusual for women of the time, especially in a male-dominated industry. Her courage and determination in this matter inspired many, although it caused resistance from the studios. However, her marriage to Miller did not turn out to be as happy as she had hoped. Arthur Miller wrote of her as his muse, but their relationship was marred by her insecurities and his coldness. Marilyn often felt she was not smart or talented enough for her husband, which exacerbated her inner fears. Miller, for his part, admitted in his diaries that he sometimes felt frustrated and fatigued by her emotional instability. Despite her success, Marilyn continued to struggle with her inner demons. Her childhood traumas, insecurities, and the pressures of Hollywood took their toll on her mental health. She suffered from depression, insomnia, and an addiction to the medications she was prescribed to combat stress. Marilyn also experienced difficulties with her pregnancies. She lost a child several times, which became a deep personal grief for her. She dreamed of the family and stability she never had, but these dreams never materialized. Her struggle to be recognized as a serious actress continued. In 1959, she starred in the comedy Only Girls in Jazz, which became a classic. Her role in the movie brought her a Golden Globe for Best Actress, and despite the difficulties on the set, Marilyn proved that she is not just an icon, but a talented actress. Nevertheless, her relationship with Hollywood became increasingly strained. Marilyn felt like a commodity, manipulated by the studios, and became increasingly alienated from the system. She sought solace in therapy, reading, and rare moments of calm. Her interest in literature, psychology, and art surprised those who knew her only as a sex symbol. By the early 1960s, her life had become even more chaotic. Her third marriage to Arthur Miller broke up in 1961, leaving her emotionally drained. Nevertheless, she continued to work, starring in movies that promised to be another hit. During the filming of The Misfits, 1961, the script for which was written by Miller, her physical and mental condition deteriorated. Nevertheless, her performance in this movie was one of the strongest and deepest in her career. She showed the audience her true feelings of loneliness, vulnerability, and pain. In the last years of Marilyn's life, scandals and rumors surrounded her. Her relationships with famous personalities, including President John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert, were the subject of much speculation. These relationships, as well as the media scrutiny, further added to her stress. On August 5, 1962, the world learned the shocking news that Marilyn Monroe had been found dead in her home in Los Angeles. Her death was officially ruled a suicide from an overdose of sleeping pills, but the circumstances of her death remain a mystery to this day. There are many theories, including accidental overdose, conspiracy, and even murder. Marilyn passed away at the age of 36, leaving behind a legacy that continues to fascinate and inspire. Her image remains a symbol of not only the beauty, but also the fragility of the human soul. Her life is a story of the quest for love, acceptance, and freedom that has resonated with millions of people around the world. Marilyn Monroe became not just a movie star, but a cultural phenomenon. Her style, smile, and charm remain relevant decades later. She inspired generations of actresses, artists, musicians, and designers. Her life and struggle for identity continue to remind the world of the price of fame and the fragility of those on the pedestal. Today, Marilyn Monroe is a symbol of an entire era, a dream, a tragedy, and an icon that will remain forever.